One was the weekend that we reopened the museum in July of 2006. We decided that we would blog live right from the museum. Our offices are about a block away from the museum, so we set up sort of a blog central in the museum itself during the opening day, and it was very festive. A big department store was sponsoring a lot of activities for kids, and so there were thousands and thousands of people at our museum. And so we actually blogged 8 stories that weekend, and that was a record for us. The second one was last November when we opened our interior courtyard. Norman Foster, who is a British architect, has done this wonderful canopy, which I'll show you in a minute, and we also blogged live then. So now that the museum was open, we had to shift our attention to a new reality. We were no longer ramping up to reopen, and a lot of our stories, as we were leading up to the reopening, were showing behind the scenes as we brought artwork into the museum, through large artworks through third-story windows, and crates in galleries, etc., etc. But all of a sudden, after this opening, we were open. So we had to reconsider the types of stories that we were doing. We started to publish stories that mainly had an image with just a short caption. This allowed us to shorten the development time for blog posts. We could show things like a conservator fixing an artwork. And we adjusted our workflow to create these quick posts. So with the Lou Center for American Art and the London Conservation Center, we started to connect our web content with our museum offerings, our bricks and mortar museum offerings. We also created another category in the blog called Picture This, in this case, where we highlighted interesting objects within the Lou Center, the open storage area. And again, this was a way of bringing interesting aspects of the museum to the surface, our long tail strategy. Now, I want to just stop a second and say, we had one main blogger. Sometimes a couple of us who actually work in the museum. Our main blogger was an outside consultant. Sometimes I would blog a post, but it wasn't sort of an heavy art post. That was more something, light going on at the time. But part of the challenge is, with a small staff, how do you keep this going? Recently, now that we've been blogging for 2.5 years, we're starting to get other offices, other people within the museum interested in blogging themselves. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with the people who work at the Lou Center, the open storage area, and we now have 3 new bloggers from the Lou Center who will be blogging stories about the Lou Center, starting initially once a week, but maybe doing twice a week as they get going. So now that we have more people, it's going to be easier to meet that 2 blog posts per week challenge. With organizational blogging, a fine line can separate interesting content from press release type posts. And we were very concerned that if iLevel was seen merely as a marketing tool, that we would lose our audience very fast. If this was just seen as a place where we posted press releases, then people would lose interest. So by defining our blog's parameters from the outset, we would scrutinize each post as it developed to make sure that we weren't getting too close to this press release line here. We wanted to be authentic and truthful and transparent, and most of all, we wanted to use a human voice whenever possible with the blog social network. And this wasn't quite the social blogosphere that we were going for. This was more of what we were going for. And now what we are finding is that our blog is becoming the foundation rather than the only part of our Web 2.0 strategy. It's an expanding area for us. This past year, we created a Flickr group where people could upload their photographs taken at SAM into a common area. And a couple weeks ago, the Smithsonian joined the Flickr Commons with the Library of Congress and the Powerhouse Museum from Sydney as well. And as moderator of this Flickr group, I made connections between the museum and those photographers in the group, offering encouragement, letting them know about upcoming photo opportunities, and sometimes I find an extraordinary image that might be very useful to our museum in a more traditional vein, in more traditional ways. This was an image that I found on our Flickr photo stream, and our director and our head of public affairs thought that this was better than some of the photographs that we had hired a professional photographer to take. By the way, this is a picture of our interior courtyard. It's very beautiful and a wonderful place. It's becoming sort of a commons within the museum. We have Wi-Fi there, we have a restaurant there, and so people are coming. It's totally air conditioned, and Washington in the summertime is not only hot but very humid. So there are lots of people here during the day, and there are events here in the evening as well. And this shows at dusk as the sun was going down. So I made contact with a photographer, and I got rights to use this photograph in our print media. So I'm starting to see a synergy between our museum's main website and eye level. Both are top refers to each other, keeping our viewers interested in our content for much longer periods of time. And I think one of the things that we have to talk about is, metrics, is statistics. Our director wants to know, how successful we are. And when we tell her that our blog is getting 7,000 to 9,000 visits per month, she said, okay, well, I understand that, but how does that compare with other blogs? So we're constantly having to sort of look at these statistics and interpret what they mean, but really nobody understands exactly what they mean. Nobody in museum blogging really understands what's good, what isn't good. If we get a lot of comments, is that good? If we don't get any comments, is that bad? Early on, my boss said, well, we're not getting any comments. And yesterday, the gentleman talked about how there were 0 comments on blog posts. Is this the only metric? Is this the only mark of success for a blog? I would say no, it's not. But it's really nice when we get comments. And what I found is, in order to have a successful blog post, conventional wisdom tells us that stories that are current or stories that are controversial get the highest number of comments.